Boom, boom, bam. What's up? Welcome back to another episode of The Great Debate Show. I'm your host, JJ, and I got something to say. The Great Debate Show is available wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of that good stuff. Rate, review, and follow. That's on the audio side. If you're listening to the podcast, The Great Debate Show is also available on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. Just type in the Great Debate Show and start following the page. And also follow and find the YouTube channel, the Great Debate Show channel on YouTube. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, hit the lights up button for the live streams or any uploaded video, and drop a comment. It really does help us out here with the algorithm at the Great Debate Show, where people can find us a lot easier. As you can see, there's not a lot of subs here on this channel. So on the YouTube live stream, if you're watching now, so it takes a lot more of this, as I said, thumbs up, comments, and again, subscribing in order for people to find the Great Debate Show a lot easier when they type it in. What am I here for today to do? Well, glad you asked. I'm here to talk about the best decade of all time. Now, there really is no such thing. Everybody has their own, reasons on why they liked a certain decade or a certain year in time better than others. Some people would probably say they like the 80s because Reagan was their best president, they think, at the time. The economy was better during that time. Gas prices, and just groceries, whatever. Movies, the 80s is kind of a decade when a lot of the franchise movies started to come out. You had the police academies, the Ghostbusters. Then Spielberg started to peak in the 80s. You had ET, you had the Fridays, the Friday Jason, the Friday Jason, damn, Jason, Friday the 13th. You had those franchise movies as they started. You had your Nightmare on Elm Streets with Freddy Krueger and all of that. Predator, Alien, E.T. So many movies in the 80s. And then there's the music, where we got the beginning of disco and all the electric, dance moves and all of that became a thing in the 80s. The 80s ain't my favorite, even though I was born in the 80s. That's why I don't know a lot about it. But when I go back and I look and I listen and everything, we were debating our playlist in the gym one day. And this is where this all came about. We were debating which playlist we listened to more and what it was filled with. And, like some people had a lot of 70s stuff, some people had a lot of 80s, 90s, 2000s. And then there's the young group, this generation, that are more with the 20s and the 10s, the 2010s. I'm here to break down all of that. And I want to debate all of that with you, whoever wants to join me, whoever is willing to come in here. Let's do it. Because I'm not just doing best movie decade, I'm not doing the best music decade, I'm not doing the best economy decade or whatever. I'm doing the best decade of all time, period. You know? And The Godfather came out in the 70s. So some people would say the 70s just because of that. Pulp Fiction came out though in the 90s. Um, and there's just so many different reasons on why people would say that one decade is better than others. What about clothes? The clothes that we rocked, that's also a big thing. I was more of a, back then you had Fat Farm, you had Tommy Hilfiger, you had Inichi, you had Rockaware, Sean John. 2000s is something that you want to think about when you think about, FUBU. And again, I'm black. This is my culture I'm speaking on. Whatever you used to rock was polo the shit. Was it better in the 80s than it was in the 2000s? I'm not sure. Aeropostale, whatever it is that you rock, that you wear, we got to put clothes in this too. Your gear, your fashion. How was fashion in certain eras? This is what I'm doing here. So whether it was your favorite TV sitcoms, your favorite movies, your favorite fashion, your favorite music, your favorite part of the economy, your president, whatever it is, what made that particular decade so special? No one will have one answer or the same answer because everything means so much um, different to others. Some things are more meaningful to people than others. And there is, like I said, there is no single best decade. It's, it's subjective and it depends on what aspects that are prioritized. And some common contenders and reasons for their popularity include the 60s, a period of significant social and cultural change with iconic music, um, like the Beatles and Bob Dylan, the civil rights movement, and all of that was going on, that whole counter culture in the 60s. What about the 70s? Were often lauded for its music, rock, disco, funk, and its films, with directors like Scorsese, Coppola, and Spielberg, all of those people emerging in the 70s. And in my culture, there was the Jeffersons, Good Times, Sanford and Son, some of the best television shows that I grew up watching, things that my parents grew up watching. And then you got the 80s. Like I said, that's where the disco and everything really became a thing. It peaked. Motorcycles and bikes, the Fonz, Happy Days, all of those things in the 80s that really got, that changed things from the 70s. And now it's a different time. Madonna. Who still could go back and listen to Madonna right now versus in the 80s when she was hot, when she was popping? Well, she kind of is the 80s and the 90s, right? So I guess you would also have to decide on that. Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, this is when they emerged in the 80s. And they were already goats or legends by the 90s. So you could use them from either decade. Prince, Purple Rain, Color Purple. And again, I'm just speaking on some of the things that I'm familiar with. Um, but I can go outside of my culture and also think of movies like what's that? Patrick Swayze, Dirty Dancing, things like that I also remember watching in the 80s. That was the shit. What is the reason why these decades are the best to you? Well, what about the 90s? A period of strong economic growth. And I said the economy could be a reason why you pick one of these decades to be the best as well. A period of strong economic growth, technical advancement, and a generally positive global outlook. That's the 90s. We know this is when we started to get a computer. I think that started somewhere in the mid to late 80s, but everybody didn't have computers until we got to the 90s. The World Wide Web and all of this all this techno I can't even read. I can't even say technological. All of those technical things though that came out. That's the 90s. What if you want to go all the way back to the 50s, the 1950s? Some view as a time of relative stability and prosperity, particularly in America, with a focus on family and community. And this is before a lot of other things that messed up the world or their communities. Like the 80s with the crack epidemic, things like that hurt families and communities, neighborhoods. So I mean, I'm not going to talk about the 50s, but I'm just saying these are the reasons why some people will say the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 90s, or the 80s could be one of the best of all time. What about the 2000s? We got to get into that too. Like I think the 2000s is kind of when pop music really was at its peak. Was it okay in the 90s? Yeah. But when you got Britney Spears and Pink and Christina Aguilera and Justin Timberlake and NSYNC and all of that stuff, the 2000s pop was pretty damn good. And then you got the emergence of Destiny's Child, and man, the list goes on. 2000s is something that we're going to come back to. What I want to do as I break this down is basically just put every decade in a box, in an era. You know, like which decades are we going to put as an A? Which decades are going to fall under B, C, D, and which decade gets a flat out F? Those are the things that we will break down. And I'm willing to do that with anybody that's here and in here. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Even if you don't like it, it don't hurt to give me a thumbs up. Do that anyway. And drop a comment. Subscribe if you have not already. Really does help us out a lot here at the Great Debate Show with the algorithm. Okay. I want to take this time to introduce somebody that wants to come in here and talk with me. What's up, man? How you doing, brother?
All good, man. It's all good, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, no problem, no problem. We're gonna talk about this best decade of all time, but I just want to go back and I want to, speak to everybody that's in here with me right now. I got T2 SS10 in the building saying hello. Hello to you, Magic Johnson. He's back again today. Talked to him yesterday. How you doing, brother? Hope all is well. He said the 70s sucked. You said that yesterday, man. He said the 70s sucks. Only good thing with the 70s was music, terrible sports, terrible movies, and the 80s had Michael Jackson. So you're basically calling Michael Jackson trash. That's crazy to me. No, I didn't say the 80s was trash. And I damn sure didn't say Michael Jackson was trash. I said Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Prince, Purple Rain, The Color Purple, all of this stuff came out in the 80s. I talked about Dirty Dancing as far as the movies, the Fonz, Happy Days, wasn't all that stuff in the 80s. I brought that up. I didn't call it trash. And Michael Jackson damn sure ain't trash. He said, I don't think the 70s is good. And again, Magic Johnson, I'm reading his comments, y'all. He told me yesterday he's 19 years old. So you might want to take that with a grain of salt. A lot of people ain't going to really hold you credible for some of the things that you may say about anything past the year 2015, to be honest with you. And again, I'm just saying, you're 19. Now, I give you credit for going back, watching and listening to whatever it is that you are, doing. You've done some research, obviously, and I appreciate that. Um, yeah, let's get the 10 likes. 60s was trash. It kind of was. You still had James Brown in the 60s. You had Elvis, didn't you? Was Elvis
You
doing
said
his
the
thing in the
'60s were
60s?
trash.
No, that's what he said. That's what
Oh, I'm
Magic
gonna
said.
say
Yeah, that's what
Motown
he said.
Records.
Motown Records. I don't even know Magic Johnson's culture, his race. I don't know what his background is. That's also gonna make this really
I
compelling.
mean, they the ones paid away. They said, all right, here it is. This the blueprint. Y'all
Not
got it from
even,
here.
bro, not even Motown. You could talk about the Beatles, also in the 60s. So yeah, I mean, like every decade has, respectfully, they have a fight. They really do have some type of uh dog in this fight, in my opinion. Okay, let's see here. Magic Johnson also said Bob Dylan, most overrated singer of all time. Never talk about that guy again. I would just bringing up names, man, to pinpoint why I'm bringing up why that decade is worth mentioning. I don't know much about Bob Dylan, to be honest with you, man. I don't. S. Charlie is in the. I'm sorry, S. Shaffle in the building says yes, that time was really cool. I love that time. What time you talking about? Is which one? Magic Johnson says 2000 is bad. Everything is bad to Magic. Damn, bro. Good luck finding my race. You can just tell me, Magic. Okay, all right, that's enough. I just wanted to just speak to everybody, and I have read some comments. All right, let's get to it. 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and hell, since we're in 2025, we can even throw in the 2020s. We've gotten half of the 20s out the way, and we got another half of this decade to go. If anybody wants to throw that in there, Magic Johnson, that's probably what you are more up to date with this time in this era right now, which wouldn't make my list at all. And again, I'm rating this on movies, music, everything, sports. What was so good about that decade? The economy. Some people would say I could afford to buy groceries in 1981, so the 80s is the best to me just because of that, or because they loved the president in that time. I don't know. So let's get to it. Let's break it down. Um, if I think that there's one decade, what decade should we start with, man? Like I mean, like we're not gonna break down every single decade that had this or had that. Tina Turner was probably like more 60s also, 60s and 70s. James Brown as well. Um, the Beatles as well. I don't know what Elvis was. I don't know if Elvis was 60s or 70s, but again, I didn't listen to no Elvis, but I know a lot of people, he's their GOAT in their mind. So you got to throw him into that equation. But what I'm saying is, if there were some decades that we could just knock off the list real quick, let's do that first. And then we'll go with the remaining three, I would say. Or we could also do it like I said a few minutes ago. We could go A, B, C, D, F. Which decade would you put in that column? Which decade is an A? Which decade is a flat out F? I don't know if anybody is an F, but feel free to do so. Um, And now I don't want to start with the 90s Magic because that ain't when everything started. Honestly, again, I'm a 90s baby, but that ain't when everything got popping. Other decades before the 90s paved the way. And so that's why we want to, before we get to breaking down the 90s, which will make my top three, I need to find out what other decades are going to be in that top three that we're going to break down and do this triple threat match. What's up to Donnie Jackson in the building? He said, start spreading the news. What I'm hearing today, the Knicks are done. New York, New York. Yeah, they done, man. That ain't no new news. It's over with. Okay. All right, bro, let's get it. What do you want to start with? How do you want to start this? I mean, like I said, it's movies, it's sports, it's music, it's the economy, wrestling. Was wrestling good in one decade better than the others? Hulk Hogan in the 80s, he ran the 80s. So every decade has its own right, respectfully, to be in this debate. So this is like a versus when they were doing the verses some years back. I guess we're not going to ever get that again, but this is kind of like a versus. What would you say is the best, or which ones would you consider the best, so we can debate those, whether it's three or whether it's four? How do you want to do it?
I think every decade rightfully deserve their own respect. Starting with the '60s. I mean, you can take it back before then. I mean, music has always been a thing. If you're talking about music itself, rock and roll, going back into the '40s and the '50s, the '60s, the Motown era, they started the rhythm and blues. If you ask me, as far as like setting the tone, um, Sam Cooke, Smokey Robinson, all those great Stevie Wonder, they started all that in the '60s. So if you're asking me, the '60s, they don't want to start the laid the bricks. Then the '70s, they took it and ran with it. I think the '70s was amazing, all across the board. Uh, Movies, sports, acting. I think hip hop started. That's when hip hop started. Was it the '80s?
1979.
Yeah, I want to say late '70s, early '80s. So with that within itself, man, the '80s need their respect. They started a lot of franchises as far as the movies, the Predators, Aliens. Those are some good franchises that they continued to make all the way out to the 2000s. So they get their respect for that. But if you're just talking about, the ones, the cream of the crop, what Magic was talking about, is the '90s. Um, I think the '90s and the 2000s and the '70s, they can pretty go kind of neck and neck. Those three, the '90s, 2000s, and the '70s. I know before you really didn't. You was kind of shitting on the 2000s at first. Uh,
Nah. Never did I do that. It's
you
just
would
we were
want to
talking
take the
about
mid 2000s,
we were talking about
or
the goat.
you would want to take the first half of the 2000s and put it with the '90s. You can't do no dip and dabbing. It's
No.
it's 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 like so, but 2000s, man. I think they were good all the way to. I'll give it to 2010. I'll push it there. I'll take the whole stretch of the 2000s. Very debatable, but if you go and see the music, man, 2000s had the music too. They still had the R&B groups. Maybe not as many as the '90s had,
Uh-huh.
but they had some heavy hitters.
They had heavy hitters, and not only that, we had fashion had really improved too in the 2000s. Like as I was saying before you came in, we had FUBU, Inichi, Fat Farm, Rockaware, Sean John. Clothes was a big thing too in the 2000s. So if you want to add that in there too, that's on you. Um, 2000s were a time where we wore baggy jeans and big clothes and rocking denim suits versus today where everything is tight. Everything's tight, tight, tight. Everything back then was loose and baggy. So just again, and again, that's our culture we're speaking. I want to say also about the 2000s, bro. Not only is the early 2000s, and I know I can't just say the early 2000s, but 2000 to 2004 was like the best part of the 2000s. And I don't have to, as much as music was still good up until 2010. I mean, '09, I don't have to include '05 to '09. I don't have to, but I will, I can. But the 2000s also had good pop music and good rock music too. Like you even listen to Green Day. I listen to Green Day. There's a lot of rock and pop that Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, NSYNC, Justin Timberlake, all of those people that started to emerge, Destiny's Child. The 2000s really can give a lot of these decades a run for their money because pop was good, rock was good, hip hop was good, also, and that's just the music.
The
Would you
comedy
agree?
shows, the sitcoms were still good. My wife and kids.
Many.
I Everybody hates Chris. I mean, these TV shows were just half and half. Man, they was killing it, man. These little common shows, man. But like, I look forward to watching these shows. Um, so yeah, 2000s, and then you still had the Simpsons, still
That's
hanging in there.
that '70s show. Um, what else we got? That '70s show. I'm trying to
Family
go
Guy.
out. I'm trying to go outside of our culture as well. Family Guy begin to emerge. I mean, peak. Yeah, a lot of cartoons, animated shows started to do that too as well. But I'm trying to think of things outside of just cartoons alone.
Well,
But
you
I know
spoke
that
about the
'70s.
fashion. The fashion was different. I mean, the fashion was a thing in the '90s, but 2000s it seemed like it got urban. Um, Fubu still was doing this thing. Jabos, Sean John, Rockaware, um,
Yeah,
all these are early 2000s.
yeah. I just
Just
mentioned
took
all of
off.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Donnie said '90s Nirvana took over. Yeah, exactly. And see, this is what's gonna do it for me. Okay, I'm a black guy. It's not hard to see. You can if you got eyes. I'm a black guy, right? The gentleman also in this thing is a black guy. So look, but if I, as a black person, can say that I can listen to hip hop, which I've always done, rock, pop, and country, that what separates these decades to me. As much as we just talked about the 2000s and fashion and all of that too, in the '90s, I also listened to country music. Um, like things that I don't do today. But if I did it then, it had to have been really great. The mid '90s country music, our mom listened to it. Like that shit was good, and baseball was good in the '90s. Um, just stuff like that that I thought I would bring out because I'm a black guy, and I'm telling you that I listen to rock and country music at some point in my life. But I'm telling you, if I listen to it now, somebody else can tell me that it was always good, and that's good.
Never
Hey,
do. It's in the bag on the
to
couch.
each his own. But if I could listen to rock music and country music in one decade, and the movies were good, and the television was good, wrestling was good, it's hard to overlook the '90s as not being number one. The '90s definitely go in the A column. I don't know if it's going to be the number one, but it goes in the A column. And I think the 2000s, as we just talked about with pop music really being better, because I think it was better than the '90s. Pop music in the '90s was Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson. Let's be real, and they're they're the goats. But at the same time, they were holding it down. The 2000s, there was so many more people that could pitch in and help out. They had a more of a collective team overall, I would say. So I like that comment, Donnie. The '90s Nirvana, I listen to that shit. For real though. Thundercats, see, he's talking about animated cartoon shows now. Yeah. And Thundercats is the '90s, I believe, though, right? So I think Donnie probably likes the '90s. Magic Johnson says '80s clears every decade in music. Clears every decade of music. Donnie said rappers listen to rock music. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Rappers are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So yeah,
I
music have
remember
no music doesn't have a color. It doesn't, but still, like I'm just saying though, like every black person I know didn't listen to Eminem. You know, and every white person that I know didn't listen to Tupac. So I mean, you're right. Music don't have a color, but still, people still choose to stick with their own culture. That's just how it's been. That I don't know any person that listened to another culture outside of their own more than the other, and I just don't. But you're right. Nothing should have a color, I agree with that, Donnie. 90s country music is trash, in my opinion. Nah, man, I disagree, Magic. I disagree completely. That's the best time of country music from me now. From me. Who remembers pencil fights in school hallways? That was the 90s, wasn't it? Wow, that's crazy take. That's a crazy take. Okay, keep it going. Bro, what's up? We just talked about the 90s and the 2000s a little bit. Sounds like they're gonna make their top three or their final four that we're gonna do. Let's get one more or two more decades, and we'll debate those just like that. Who else is gonna make the cut? What do you say about the 70s versus the
The 70s definitely
2010s?
made the cut.
So the 70s would make the cut over 2010s or over the 80s. Correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Could you explain why?
The 70s, man, you got all the great dances, right? Um, Soul Train, if people remember that. The shows, the
Depends
comedy
on what
shows,
culture we got in
sitcoms,
here. Hmm.
the TV era, some of the greatest shows ever that we still watch today with Sanford and Son, um, Jeffersons, uh,
Yeah. Good times.
Good
What's
Times,
happening?
yeah.
I'm trying to
All
think
these
of
great sitcoms, man, all these great writers, all these great comedians, Richard Pryor. Yeah, so the 70s, yeah, the 70s definitely up there. We I think we talked for years that the 70s and 90s, we didn't know which one to choose. But I think we still, chose the 90s. But um, yeah, the 70s definitely in there. The blues, Johnny Taylor.
Elvis. Elvis still was the 70s also, right? Um, who else? Who else? Who else? Bruce Springsteen. When was Bruce Springsteen hot? Was it 70s or 80s?
I'll say both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rock and
Um,
roll. Who was running rock and roll still with the Beatles, wasn't it? Probably. So
but
yeah, 70s
now I
definitely have to
did say
go in
about
there.
the 80s though, and I don't know what the audience will say about this, but I was saying that Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston are some of the greatest entertainers of all time.
Hands down. No doubt.
They
No
touched
doubt.
the scene. They touched the scene in the 80s. They
Yeah.
blessed us with a lot of great music in the 80s. That's where it all started. So I'm like, let's not sleep on the 80s. A lot of great. I mean, if we're going to talk about the 2005 class, which was Kanye, Game, 50 Cent, Rick Ross, Jeezy, when they all in that class?
Not quite 50. Get Rich or Die Trying dropped in 2003. Um, so he came out a little earlier than that. But if you want to just put them in the 2000 category, then yeah, you can because they still all
That
came
was a
out.
strong era.
Yeah.
All those rappers
Rick
that I just
Ross.
named.
Rick Ross didn't come out till 06, Jeezy 05. Kanye started doing his thing in 03, like 50. So yeah.
I mean, as far as rapping wise, Kanye been on the scene when it comes to making beats. But as far as rapping,
Yeah.
2000s when he touched it. So
Right.
yeah, a lot of things happened in the 80s. Prince, Purple. I mean, that's Tina Turner. There's a lot of great things going on in the 80s that I think we just need to say, hey, wait a minute. I mean, those are some Hall of Famers we just named, and they originated pretty much in the 80s. I mean, Michael Jackson maybe came out in 78, 79. I mean, of course, he was with the Jacksons.
The Jackson 5 was the 70s, but
Right.
Michael Jackson was more of the 80s. But my only argument to that, or my counter, would be that Michael Jackson was the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. He was all of that shit. That's why he used to go. He was all of that. So I don't
So
know
it's
if you
hard
can.
to it's hard
I
to shit
think
on the 80s.
it's hard to, but I think you're also using artists in certain decades to kind of really help the 80s look a little better than what it probably really is. Because
I don't think like
Prince didn't go away in
that's
the
what
80s.
happened. I
But
mean, it was
I,
in the
I,
80s.
yeah, it was, but it was also in the 90s too. Like, Whitney was hot in the 80s, but she was hot in the 90s too. That's all I'm saying. And Tina
Yeah.
Turner, I don't think you can use her for the 80s. I think Tina Turner was more 60s and 70s. Her and Ike. But hey,
Yeah.
like I said, it doesn't stop with the music though, bro. You also got the movies. And I just think that's where I kind of draw the line at with the movies. I think the 80s kind of took a step back. from what they were doing. Um, well, I ain't gonna say they took a step back from the '70s because people may not even think the '70s had good films, but it definitely got better as we got out of the '80s. So um, I don't know, man. And again, sports was trash in the '80s. I would say if it wasn't for Magic and Bird, you don't have sports. You don't have basketball. So I don't give the '80s the nod on sports. And then Hulk Hogan, you can talk about him in the '80s, but I don't give wrestling the nod in the '80s because I hated Hulk Hogan. Um, so I can't think of anything in the '80s for wrestling that would
Yeah,
make
like the only
boxing
thing you
was
can do
okay.
for is like you can pay homage, like you said. Hogan started it, and it was
Yeah.
in the '80s. The world that I remember this to being the WWF, World
Uh-huh.
Wrestling Federation,
Yeah.
and that was the '80s. That was that '80s era, the kid friendly era. But that's when it all started. So like the '80s is a good decade to pay homage
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. I want to pay
because it
homage to
got better.
all.
Wrestling definitely got better over the years. It definitely got better, but we remember it. It all
Much better.
started in the '80s.
Right, right. I would have to say I would have to leave the '80s out. I'm cool with us leaving the '70s, the '90s, and the 2000s. It seems like those are the three we're going to debate as far as which is the greatest for everything. I think that the '80s belong probably in the I would put the '80s in the C column, but you probably it sounds like you probably would put them in the B column. Um, the '70s, the '90s, and the 2000s, I'm putting them in the A column, and I would say the '60s, put them in a C. Put them in a C. The '50s, this is an era where everybody thought, and I'm not going to talk about the '50s. I don't know nothing about the '50s really, but the '50s is a decade where people say it was a good time to be alive because it was a little bit before we got to, all of the bullshit,
But it
with
say it depends on what culture you ask,
yeah, and that's true.
and
That's
what
that's
part of the region you in.
that's also true
I don't
too.
want to be in the '50s, nigga. Fuck
I,
that.
I don't either, but it still got worse for us in the '60s,
It did. It did. It did.
and so I did read somewhere where a majority thought that the '50s was a time before we got to all of the bullshit. When it really became bullshit. And yeah, the '60s definitely probably should be in the F. If I want to think about it now, not because they're bad, but because of all the shit that our culture went through. I would probably say but '60s belong in the F. This is during the civil rights movement, all of that bullshit that
Yeah, we
our
lost. We
culture.
lost. We lost Martin Luther King. We lost Malcolm X. So
Yeah,
yeah, we took a shot. We man,
yeah,
we,
yeah. For
the
us,
'60s was rough.
the '60s probably fall in the F column. Now I can't speak for every other race. Um, and I know people ain't gonna really let us know that
I had
here
to
in the
put myself.
comments, but let me check up and see what some of these people are saying because I saw something that Donnie said I wanted to read out. He said that I'm gonna get a lot of heat on this, but my opinion is Jimi Hendrix is the greatest. Why would you get a lot of heat on that, bro? If Jimi Hendrix is your goat, cool. I like Jimi Hendrix. Um, was Jimi Hendrix more '60s? Because I just gave him an F. I think he's '60s though, ain't he? Or
I mean,
'70s?
he probably both. I
Probably
mean,
both.
we can go to
Probably both.
Bob Marley, man. He was in the '70s. Man, that's a Hall of Famer.
Sam Cooke
Um,
is the '60s. You can't forget about Sam Cooke, but
man, I'll never forget about Sam Cooke. That's why I
right,
say the '60s. Like I said, they started the bricks.
they
They
did.
built it. You know what I'm saying? They built this.
Yeah.
Um,
But Donnie, we ain't got no problem with you talking about Jimi Hendrix. You don't get no heat from me on that.
I'm a big fan of
'70s.
I'm a
What's
big
happening,
fan of
Chuck?
Nina Simone. Nina Simone is in the '60s, in the '70s, in the '80s. Nina Simone, man. If you don't know her, man, listen to her music, man. She would definitely move you. She really
Billy
will.
Holiday. Billy Holiday.
Billie Holiday, another one, '60s.
Yeah.
Ella Fitzgerald, like a lot of great ones.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
Nat King
man.
Cole, great. Um,
Unforgettable. Oh man,
so
'60s. Yeah, man. Look, let me say I'm gonna say D. The only reason why I'm putting them in the D is because, like I said, we lost Martin, we lost Malcolm, and there's a lot of shit going on, man, during the civil rights movement and after in the '60s. So yeah, and we lost Sam Cooke too. I want to say in the same decade. So either way, yeah, let's put the '60s in the D column, and that's only because of all the shit that our people went through, our culture. But yeah, I like this. What Donnie Jackson said the 70s. What's happening? That show was good in the 70s. It was. Michael Jackson was making people passing out watching him in live concerts. I remember when I first saw that, I asked my mom, I said, Mama, who is that dude? And she said, oh, that's Michael Jackson, the baddest man on the planet. And I said, he sure in the hell look like it. These women are, is this fake? Is this entertainment? Or and she said, no, son, they just don't know how to act when they see him. They want to get to him, get close to him, and then they just
Yeah,
pass
that's
out when
when
they
your spirit has been possessed. It's been you don't need to own your soul anymore at that point. Michael Jackson has it, and they proved it every time he got on the stage. Man, it was crazy.
and to
Yeah,
this day, man, and I'm in my 40s now, and to this day, I've never seen a motherfucker that could make a woman just like do some shit like that. You know, it was crazy. I saw that stuff growing up, and I'm like, wow, I want to go see him one day. Now, I never got to do that before he left this world, but if that was one thing that I could do before I left this world, it would be to go see Michael Jackson perform live. And I don't like to go see live concerts. That ain't even really me. So that's how you know he really is bad, like he said he was. Good comment, Donnie. Dr. Dre the Chronic was killing it to this day. It still do. I feel you, Donnie. You were 90 talking that 90s shit. I know one female singer who everybody feels in love, who everybody fell in love with. Sade. Oh my God. Yeah, man. Now Sade is like, and my brother knows that I listen to a lot of Sade. You know, I get outside and get into my zone, man, in my backyard, and I'm just feeling the breeze and enjoying the wonderful weather. And I'm doing whatever I'm doing, and I'm enjoying a nice quiet evening listening to some Sade. So I want to say she was more 80s and 90s. No, I think she's just more 90s. It's still 90s. And yeah, that's a good one, man. I do love Sade. She was killing it. I grew up in a house on Sundays. My dad washing his car, blasting the Temptations, drinking a Coke 45. All right, Donnie. I like that. I like that. Um, yeah, man, I like that. The Temptations. And that's why the 70s is we about to debate. We're about to debate that. We're about to debate that. Let's get to it then. It seems like we kicked the 60s out, we kicked the 50s out, and the 80s didn't quite make the cut. The 2010s, before we start, bro, the 2010s. Are you okay with the 2010s? Or you want to kick them out too? Where do you put them at from A, B, C, D, F? We just left the 2010s, so it ain't hard to remember. We just left it in 2019 before we got to
yeah,
the
the
20s.
2010s. Yeah. They gone. Yeah,
They gone? Okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay. I mean, we got the 444 in the
Yeah, I'm not even
2010s
looking
now.
back. Like this.
We got the 444 in the 2010s. We got the Magna Carta. We got the what was the album? Nothing's Ever the Same, the Drake album with the pound cake and all of that. That's all. That's
I mean, it's not
2010s.
it's not competing with the ones we just named before.
I mean, well, Rihanna was doing her thing in the tens. Um, who else was doing her thing in the tens? There's a lot of stuff now in the tens, but if you want to disqualify, okay, we can. But I just wanted to see how you felt about it because Nicki Minaj, you're a big fan of her. She was the shit. She was the queen in the tens.
Yeah.
Um, that's exactly when she arrived too, 2010. Lil Wayne was killing it through the tens. A lot of people is that he's their goat to some people. So I just wanted to just touch on it. I don't know what rock was like in the 2010s. I couldn't tell you. I don't think anybody really listens to country music except for whoever that one guy is that I know a lot of people listen to. I can't think of his name right now though. We can't hold a whole decade down. So all right, we're gonna kick the 2010s out. Does anybody agree that we should be going with the 70s, the 90s, and the 2000s? Those are the top three decades we're about to debate right now. Now, if we're gonna start with who do you want to start with first? I guess the 70s. I guess we would say the 70s then. What was so good about the 70s on why we would say it's the GOAT decade of all time? And don't forget Jimmy Carter, Nixon, all of those presidents, the economy, whatever you thought about the 70s. All of this has to take a part to what you would say. The movies, I don't know
Well,
how familiar you
if
are with
you're
the movies.
talking economics or how
Everything.
the world was being ran, I mean, it gets an F. If you call that,
Oh, okay.
I mean, I
Okay.
remember Vietnam. It started in the 70s, lasted for 10 years, um, maybe longer. And that was a casualty. So it's getting an F when you're talking that. It gets an A when you're speaking television wise. It gets an A plus. Music, music, I would give it a B plus.
Yeah, you got the Shy Lights, the Stylistics, you got
Yeah, you got all the great.
Earth, Wind, and Fire. You got the Temptations.
You
You
got
got
the Isley Brothers,
the
man.
OJ's, the Isley Brothers. You got everything.
All
We
those
just
great groups.
we just didn't have hip hop,
Frankie
and
Beverly
that's
and
not a
Mays,
bad thing either, really.
Johnny Taylor, all these great artists. Bobby Womack. So that's some heavy hitters, man. I mean, these artists we talking about. I mean,
Gladys Knight and the Pips.
yeah,
Yep,
it's just too many, man. It's a lot. It's a
yep.
lot. Um, and Charlie Pride, when was he? I think he was around the 70s.
I would say so, 70s or 80s. Yeah,
Aaron Neville, country music.
and I still remember Aaron Neville in the 90s, but I want to say he started in the 80s. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, that would be my thing. Why the 70s stand up to the 90s? Television, the artists, too many R&B groups, too many brand names that are still here and have great catalogs to this day. Stevie Wonder, man, I can just say Stevie Wonder, and it should be kind of hands down, mic drop. Luther Vandross, it should be mic drop. You know what I mean? These are not just.
He's not 70s though. Luther's not 70s. Stevie
You
Wonder.
sure he didn't arrive somewhere? He probably arrived in the late 70s too.
He might have did,
But yeah,
even
more
if he
80s.
did, he don't count. He can't count.
And that's why I was speaking on the 80s. Like, man, Luther.
But we didn't
Even
kick
though,
them out now. We didn't kick them out.
Yeah.
We done already kicked the 80s out. The 70s, I give you Stevie Wonder. And if Terrence was here, he definitely would say Stevie Wonder. That's like his all-time favorite musician. So you get no arguments with me on that. No debate there with the 70s and Stevie Wonder. But you can't include Luther because Luther was more 80s and 90s. But
well, yeah.
okay. So the music you give it a B plus. Or did you say A? B plus. And what about a TV? I think you gave it an A.
Yeah.
And then the movies, what do you rate? What do you rate that at? You had Shaft movies. You had all the old Jim Kelly flicks. You had I don't know.
Movies we can do a C plus on the movies. I mean, it's nothing. Well, I can't. No, I take that back.
Well, you had
There is
Pam Grier.
one movie.
You had Pam Grier movies in the 70s, didn't you? Or
Yeah,
was that
and
the
there
80s?
is one movie that, man, it's my GOAT movie. Well, it's one of my GOAT movies. It's one of my GOAT movies.
What?
Coolie High. Coolie
Yeah,
High
that's
is
the
one of my
70s.
all-time favorite movies.
That's
And
the
it came
70s.
out in 75, I think.
76 or yeah, something like that. Yep. Coolie High.
That's one of my top 5 movies of all time. Coolie High is my favorite fucking movie.
Okay.
A bit.
I didn't know
stupid
that.
bit. That's what they bet. That's what he bet on the woman, man. But anyhow, man, yeah, man. Great movie, man. Gene Thurman, I think he played. I think that's his name.
Glenn, I think it's Glenn Thurman.
Glenn Thurman. He did an excellent job. Yeah, man. One of my favorite movies, man. High School.
And you know, Coolie High is actually the movie that what's happening is like a spinoff of Coolie High. In case anybody didn't know that. Somebody said something
Don't
about what's
forget,
happening.
Martin was in that. And that was one of his favorite movies. Was Coolie High. He talked about it on the show.
Yes.
So yeah, 70s. So TV, definitely. Like I said, you know.
Mm-hmm. So 70s definitely falls in the A category. We're just trying to figure out if it tops the next two we're gonna do. And that's the 90s and the 2000s. Okay, let's get to the 90s. And I'm gonna start with the movies right now because I'm looking at it right now. Just a list of stuff that I kind of put up on my display. The 90s, man, you got all kind of stuff from Jurassic Park, Pulp Fiction, The Goodfellas, Forrest Gump, Dancing with Wolves, Seven, Brad Pitt,
Jerry Maguire,
The Titanic, Jerry Maguire, Silence of the Lambs, The Terminator, Terminator, the Friday franchises, the Rush Hour franchises, the Lion King, um, Braveheart, Mel Gibson. Man, I could go on and on and on, bro, when we talk about the fucking 90s. Um, so many flicks, so many flicks. Usual Suspects, Schindler's List,
Home
um,
Alone,
Home Alone,
Space Jam,
Space Jam,
Toy Story,
Toy Story. You see what I mean? It just
Beauty
it
and the
goes
Beast.
Beauty and the Beast.
I mean,
It
all these
goes
are like
it
Pocahontas. All these were great movies that we, Charlotte's Web. All these movies that we watched
yeah,
coming up in the '90s.
it goes on and on.
My son says Pinocchio.
Pinocchio, Saving Private Ryan, um, Unforgiven. Like I said, man, plenty of things, plenty, and that ain't even get to the television shows, the sitcoms. You also had low budget films that people still remember, like Booty Call, Sprung. Um, let's see.
I already
Just
said
so
Friday.
a thin line between love and hate. Of course, we said the Fridays. Just so many,
Menace
and
to Society, Boys in the Hood. You know, Dead
and see,
President.
I gave movies not just our culture. I talked about a lot of other movies too. So that just like everybody can get some room here. Everybody can get something in here. It's room for everybody. And then when we get to the sitcoms, you got Saved by the Bell, Married with Children, um, Family Matters, all of that TGIF stuff,
Fresh Prince,
The Fresh Prince of Bel Air,
Cosby
um,
Show, one of my goats.
The Cosby Show, Boy Meets World, and Step by
Different
Step,
World.
A Different World,
All these shows that
Martin,
changed our lives, you know, they
Jamie
changed our
Foxx Show,
lives. They
The
taught us a
Wayans,
lot of things. They taught us about life. They taught us life lessons. So,
Friends,
all those shows did.
Living Single. Yeah, the '90s was the shit. It was the shit. I mean, I just
We hadn't even spoke about the music. So,
Michael Jordan, basketball, sports, the NFL, football, wrestling. It's peak. This is when it really shined bright. Bret the Hitman Hart, not just Hulk Hogan. Now we got Bret Hart. Ric Flair still here. Sting has emerged. Like we can just go on and on and on. But the '90s, NWO started in the '90s. Triple H, HBK, the Showstopper, the Heartbreak Kid, all of that wrestling was the shit in the '90s. The movies that we just said was the shit in the '90s. And again, if we go back to the music, we've already spoke on. Man, it's just where do you start when we talk about the music? You've got TLC with the groups, the R&B groups, so the SWVs and the again, I don't know I don't know. Pop was not as good in the '90s as it was in the 2000s, but all I gotta do is say Madonna, and I can drop the mic because she was the shit in the '90s as well as the '80s. Um, Man, it's another one too in the '90s. What was that other lady? Alanis Morissette. You had Madonna. You had um, a lot of stuff, man. The country music, as I said in the '90s, was great. All of that stuff was popping. All of that was popping. So yeah, I would say the '90s. The '90s was the shit. And I don't know. The '90s is an A+. And to me, in my opinion, it gets an A+ in movies. We just named a lot of them. It gets an A+ in music. It gets an A+ in fashion. It gets an A+ in television, in sitcoms. There's nothing that I could say the '90s was trash at. I mean, and even some people, not me, but even some people think that Clinton was one of the best presidents they ever had. That ain't me then. But when you look at the '90s, I know one thing. I wish I could get gas for $1.09, for $1.29, you know what I'm saying, 99 cents. I remember seeing gas prices like that in the '90s growing up. Going to the drive-in movie or going to the movies, period, in the '90s was the shit. And house parties. I didn't even mention House Party, the franchise movies of the house parties, but we could really have house parties in the '90s, and then nothing happened. You know, nothing happened. Nobody got hurt. Nobody got shot. Nobody got stabbed. Pookie didn't get killed. You know, Ray Ray didn't go to jail. Everything was cool in the 90s. So it's hard for something to top the 90s. I think I kind of give the 90s a pass over the 70s, and I'm ready to go into the 2000s, in my opinion. Again, what else do you want to say about the 90s? That is, I mean, the 90s is the shit.
Hey, Donnie is cracking me up, man.
What Donnie talking about now, man? Real talk, these kids, new generation thing wouldn't survive the 80s. I agree. He said the 70s, the singers was really singing, no auto tones or nothing like that. Man, another good comment. Donnie Jackson also said, hey, before I leave, I found out yesterday my great uncle was in a relationship with the lead singer of the Staples family. Damn. Okay. Shout out to your uncle, man, and long live. Donnie also said jive turkeys. That's the 70s there, ain't it? Blackula, come on now. Yeah. So, Donnie, what you saying, man? Are you going 70s or 90s, brother? I can't tell. But I think you kind of torn between the two. And I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Can I get some more thumbs up? Hit the like button. Keep dropping these comments. Subscribe to this show and hit the notification bell. That
So,
way you will be notified every time a new episode is up here on the Great Debate Show, live on YouTube. I'm also live now on TikTok. Give me some likes on TikTok. Follow me on TikTok. It's the Great Debate Show. All you gotta do is type it in, follow us. I'm gonna put this out on the web and see what people think about it on social media. 70s, 90s, 2000s. Those are the three I'm gonna put out there. And if somebody wants to say neither, it's the 80s, neither, it's the whatever, come on with it. We'll be glad to chop it up with you and continue this debate for the rest of the week because I'm about to put it up on our social media pages. Again, we're on Facebook, we're on X, formerly known as Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Okay. Donnie, I appreciate your comments though, man. Indiana Jones and Back to the Future is the 90s as well. See what I'm talking about? The 90s was the shit, man. Yes, it really was. It really was. Michael J. Fox. Hell yeah. Friends. What else you got, bro, for the 90s before we get to the 2000s and then we can pretty much wrap it up and see
I
which
mean, we
one is the
named all the
best?
great artists, groups, sports, movies. I mean,
Michael
right now the
Jordan.
90s is still in the league.
Michael Jordan. That's all I got to say for the 90s. Drop the mic. The Chicago Bulls. The Atlanta Braves were still America's team in baseball. Baseball was still good in the 90s. The Dallas Cowboys, America's team. The last time the Cowboys were, well, they're always relevant for whatever reason, but that was the last time the Dallas Cowboys really were America's team. Winning the Super Bowl in 92, 93, 95, the 90s. Should have been a Cowboy. Toby Keith. Rip. Long live. Good stuff, man. Country music in the 90s. Reba McEntire, Toby Keith, Vince Gill. Yeah, I know about this stuff. Brooks and Dunn. Man, come on, man. The 90s was the shit. Now, what year did Alien come out? Was Alien in the 90s? That was the 90s, wasn't it? Alien? No. 80s?
Yeah, I think that was in the 80s.
Okay. Well, we got the 80s kicked out. The 80s is in the C
All
column. All right, so yeah, we did the 90s. All of those TV shows and those movies that we talked about was the shit. I'm talking about from 90 all the way to 99. The scary movies started in the late 90s when we started getting the scary movies and all of that. The Wayans brothers, their sitcom from 95 to 99. Jamie Foxx show. Yeah, you just can't top it. All of those shows that came on UPN, all of the black sitcoms, the Parkers. Yeah, man, that we could talk about the 90s all day, which that may be our go. All right, let's wrap it up with the 2000s. Bro, the 2000s is when we got, you know, a change just a little bit with the way we rocked our gear, the fashion, switched it up just a little bit. We went from just baggy clothes to denim suits, Sean John, Rockaware, Nietzsche, Fat Farm, all of that stuff, Pele Pele, Carl Kanai. This is when
Colorado. Colorado was a thing in the 90s.
But it's kind of 90s too, but
yeah. But definitely the velour suits, the bubble coats,
Tommy Hilfiger, and all of that stuff.
The Band-Aids, thanks to Nelly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we took it to another level, man. The 2000s took it to another level. And I say, man, if you try to take some of the 2000 and put it with the 90s, man, the 2000 had to have something going. They had to been cooking. And from 2000 to 2000 and I say 6, 7, man, they were cooking. They were cooking, man. They were cooking with fish grease.
What are
Uh,
some of the things that we could say about the 2000s that would make it top the 70s and the 90s though? Like what? Not just the
they,
fashion,
they was
but that was
killing it
one
in the
thing.
movies too. From the generic ones to the low budget ones to the mainstream, they was killing it. What did we get at first? The Matrix. I think it started with that. I think that was '01, wasn't it? 2001.
The Matrix was 99, but
Oh, okay,
what
okay.
the hell? It was 99,
Um,
2000, 99, I believe. It might have been 2000, bro. Since it's so close to the 2000s, the
right.
2000 can get love for it too. Yeah.
You had the Spider Mans, uh, all the Avengers, Fast and the Furious movies,
Uh-huh.
uh, the great TV shows. Still,
Um, not another teen movie. All of those things started to come out in the 2000s. American Pie, all of that stuff right there. Um,
right. What's his name? Ben Stiller. What was he doing? He was hot at that time.
Ben Stiller was hot. Ben Stiller, what was he doing, man? I don't know. What he wasn't doing? Something about Mary? No,
The
something about
parents,
Mary
meet the
was actually
parents,
98. That was actually 98.
meet the parents, or meet the Fockers. He had a few of them.
That's 2000s, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, what else in the 2000s, man? We also had uh Love and Basketball came out in 99 or 2000. 2000. So you
2000.
got to throw Love and Basketball in there. That's
Oh yeah, it made 25
one of
years.
your GOAT movies. Okay,
25
yeah.
years in March.
There you go.
Happy 25. It aged gracefully. It aged well. So now Lathan aged well. Great fucking movie. One of my top favorites that you mentioned.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
Love and Basketball. And then 2001 had a lot of good stuff that came out. That's my year, and I'm like 2001. We looked back at this a while back in the past and we were like, damn, 2001 really snapped out with the
I think
movie.
Any Given Sunday came out in '01.
What's that?
Any Given Sunday.
It did. It
Yeah.
did. No. Any Given Sunday came out in 99. I'm sorry. That's 99. Because he was still doing the Jamie Foxx show when that came out. Oh, Willie Baby. But again, you had like Ocean's 11. That was 2001. You had directed by what's his name? Um, let's see. 2000s. We know we got all about the Benjamins in like '01, '02. Ice Cube. We got when did we get Rush Hour 2? '01.
We got all the Fridays.
Well, two of those Fridays came out in the 90s. Technically, the only one that came out in the 2000s was the last, and that was in '02.
That was Friday after next, right?
Friday After Next.
Okay.
And it still belongs in there. Now, don't get me wrong. Minority Report, Steven Spielberg, that's 2002. Saw came out in 2004. Um,
Yeah, the Jeepers Creepers as well,
that's early 2000s.
which is
Texas,
crazy.
Texas Chainsaw. What was it called again? Yeah, Texas Chainsaw. Was that what it was?
Yeah.
That's 2000 as
Texas
well.
Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, that's 2000s. Mean Girls, 2004. Um, White Chicks, 2000. That's 2000. I want to say. Got to put White Chicks up there.
Bringing down the house.
Um, what's that?
Bringing down the house.
Bringing Down the House. Queen Latifah, Steve Martin, 2004, I believe.
All right, we didn't say Baby Boy, did it?
Baby Boy, 2001. It's a lot of stuff we missing out from 2001, bro. I said 2001 really had a lot of good movies, and Baby Boy is one of them.
The
Can't leave that
Wood?
out.
No, damn. Never mind. That was '99. Never mind.
Shout out to John Singleton. Long live the king. Elf came out in 2003. This
South
is
Park.
when we started to see him emerge. What's his name? Ricky Bobby, whatever his name is. This is when he started to emerge. Um,
Hey, what was
Chicago,
Varsity Blues? What year was it?
Chicago came out in '02. Huh?
Varsity Blues. Don't say it was
Varsity,
99.
Varsity Blues is '99 though. Yeah,
Damn.
yeah. A lot of stuff in '99 people would like to give the 2000s credit for, but it's still '99. So yeah, can't use Varsity. Can't use Varsity Blues. Um, I think Friday Night Lights came out in the 2000s. You can use that one. Another good football movie. What else? What else? What else? What else?
Friday the 13th.
Star Trek. Well, they've been making it for I don't know how long. Let's
I
see.
know
Let's
a
see.
lot
Let's
of
see.
Marvel movies came out in that time.
Marvel movies, yep. And some people would say, just name a few Marvel movies, and you could drop the mic. I think the first Shrek came out in 2001. Also, Shrek. Um,
Yeah, big franchise. Yeah, I think they
big
did like four,
franchise.
three or
Big
four.
franchise.
Um,
Give it up to 2001, man. Like that's really what we should do. Just start looking at 2001 stuff,
Cars
and that'll
came out in
pretty
the 2000s. The Cars.
2004.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Cars.
Great things, man.
Um,
Great things in the 2000s. Television shows, the fashion, the rap music, of course.
yeah, let's get to the hip hop then. If we can stop with the movies right now with the 2000s. We've said enough. Um, I was a big fan of the Two Can Play That Game stuff with Vivica Fox. She started that in the early 2000s. She did a few of those. Um, Big Mama's House. That's when we got the Big Mama House franchise movie. Those started in the 2000s. Can't leave that out.
Forgot
Martin,
about that.
Martin Lawrence, and all the things he did. Yep. Um, in the 2000s, Will Smith was still like topping the charts. So any Will Smith movie in the early 2000s, you got to give him credit for those. Um, he had quite a few in the
Ali,
2000s.
that was a big one. That was like '01.
'01, of course it was '01 because 2001 is probably the best year in the 2000s. Period. That's what it seems like. But let's move on to the music then. Man, this is when Dipset started to merge. This is when Rockefeller Records was doing their thing. You also had Rough Riders doing their thing, DMX killing it on the charts. Destiny's Child, Beyonce started to break out on her own. Um, Kanye West, we talked about 2000s. Pop music began to really be the shit from like I said, Britney Spears and all of those. Christina Aguilera, Pink,
Justin Timberlake.
Justin Timberlake, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, all of that stuff, man. A thin line between love and hate. That's the '90s, Donnie. And that's yes, goat shit. January, Cuzzo, I'm about to roll out. Love show. Okay, love the show. Thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, Donnie, me and Donnie discovered that we're both born like the same year, the same month, and we just like 2 days apart. We figured that out a few episodes back. Uh, that's crazy. But anyway, yeah. Thank you for joining me, man. I appreciate it. And man, you have a good, terrific Thursday. We about to wrap it up too, man. I mean, the 2000s is the shit. Basically, what we're trying to say, and now we're trying to figure out who we're gonna put at 1, 2, or 3 with the '70s, the '90s, and the 2000s. And when we talk about the TV shows from all of the UPN sitcoms that were coming out in the early 2000s, from the Parkers, Half and Half, All of Us, man, the list goes on. And then you had the movies, you had sports. This is when Kobe and Shaq started to do their thing in the 2000s. Um, if you basketball was good, football was good, McNabb, T.O.
All the criminal shows start to just come in during the 2000s. CSIs, and I mean it was
Yeah,
CSI in every city.
yeah, yeah,
Shit.
yeah. This is the
Back
early
in the day.
2000s is also when all the Law and Orders started to take lift off. I know they started in kind of like the mid to late '90s, but when we started to get the SVUs and all of that,
And
it
shout out
was
to Grey's Anatomy. You
it was
know,
the 2000s. Okay, okay. Grey's
top
Anatomy.
five.
Lord of the Rings came out in '02. Um, a lot of stuff, man. Just a lot of stuff. My wife and kids. You talked about that as well. Um, Keisha Cole was doing her thing at one point in the 2000s. Sierra broke out in the 2000s. Million
That's
Dollar
when
Baby
the
2004.
reality shows took place. They started to hit.
Yeah, now that's an F. They get an F for that shit. They get an F for
They
that.
were killing it when it first came out, though. I ain't gonna lie, man. I ain't gonna lie. I was watching this shit. When Flavor Flav came.
We probably should give that more to the 2010s though, because
No, not
2000s.
Flavor Flav.
I think it was just Flavor Flav. I think that was it. Reality TV really took off in the tens, I think. But I'll give you
No,
Flavor
it
Flav.
was before then.
You had a
Cause
lot
you
of
had
good dating shows. I don't know
you
about
had
reality.
the 16, all of that. That started in the 2000s. Pregnant mom, all that type of stuff that was going on. That's reality still at the same time, but
That's
all
what's okay. It started in the 2000s. Okay, the 40-year-old virgin was 2005. Um, Three Strikes was 2000. One of my favorites. Can't forget about that. Um, yeah, that's enough for the movies and the TV stuff.
Brown Sugar.
I think we said enough. Yeah, hell yeah. Brown Sugar, Super Bad, 2007. Uh, um, so yeah. The Bad Boys. Damn, the Bad Boys is kind of the 90s. Well, they only did one movie in the 90s, so you got to give Bad Boys credit for the 2000s because we got Bad Boys 2 in 03.
Bad
And
Boys 2 was the best one, and it was in the 2000s.
yeah, 03.
And
So
we waited 10 years for that. We waited 10 years for that movie.
8.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, 8. Yep.
8. Okay. Almost
Mhm.
10 years we waited for that movie, man. I ain't gonna lie. They didn't. Now that you speak that, man, that was a good time.
Yeah.
That was a good time. It was summertime, man. I'm young. I'm a freshman in college, or sophomore rather. That song come out. Go on, shake it.
Yeah.
We get good with Fab, baby. But man, that was a good time, man. Then the movie came out. We looking at them. Then the movie, then Fellas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a
Right.
great time.
2000s, man. All right. It sounds like 2000s is gonna top the 70s because
T.I.
we
just
got
hit the
more.
scene in 03. 03.
Yeah.
He hit in 03, took it off. Gucci, 2 Chain, which was Titty Boy back then.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
how can I leave that out? The 2000s, not only was it a good time for music, but that's when the South took over. Now, a lot of people probably don't give two fucks about that, but we do because we're from the South, as you can tell from listening to me talk. The South is when the 2000s took over. Now, when you talk about the 80s and the 90s, it's New York, the Mecca, so they say, and it's LA, one or the other, or both. But when we got to the 2000s, this is when the club songs and the lean with it, rock with it, and snap your fingers, and Lil Jon was doing the crunk music in the early 2000s.
the Yang
We took
Twins.
over. Yeah, this is when we took over. And I ain't gonna lie, 2000, now it's fast forward to 2025, we ain't never gave it back. The South still kind of runs shit. Everybody either from Atlanta, Florida, or Texas running shit in music and hip hop. So when it comes down to our culture and that, I would say that. Did I talk about the Lord of the Rings that came out in 2001?
Yeah.
So yeah, man, the 2000s. It sounds like, bro, we are gonna have to put the 2000s at number 2 or number 1. It's not. It seems like the 70s got bumped down to number 3, in my opinion, from what we're saying. We talking about a whole lot of more stuff. We bringing up all kind of movies and music and again, wrestling was still good in the 2000s also. Sports was still good in the 2000s. As I've said before, my greatest era in life is like 95 to 05. But I can't, as you were saying, bro, earlier, I can't get the best of both worlds. I'm combining both of them in one, and that ain't fair. But those are my top 2 then, I guess, the 90s and the 2000s. And it's just a matter of which one is number 1 then, which one is goated. And we'll leave that to anybody in the comments. We'll leave that to anybody that's watching. Anybody that's gonna listen, let us know in the comments. But bro, who you got? What would you say is number 1? Because I think we narrowed it down to the 70s, the 90s, and the 2000s, top 3. Now, in what order do you put them in? Teach me how to Dougie. Yeah, that's 2000. Like that's when we took over. That's when the South took over. Teach me how to duck. Chicken noodle soup. When my daughter was born as a baby, she was listening to that. I'm like, dang, already. My daughter was like I'm still like changing her diaper, giving her milk,
Or-
and she's learning how to say chicken noodle soup with a soda on the side. So this is when we took over. This is when the 2000 the South took over. Which one? What it gonna be, bro? What it gonna be? Who you got? Who's number one then? We just talked about everything. I don't think we left anything out from those eras. And if we did, somebody will let us know. But
I'm gonna keep it real. I'm gonna say this. I love the 2000s. I got some great memories, man. I got some great times for 2000. Uh, 05, 04.
and again, Will Smith had a lot of movies came out in 07, 08. I Am Legend, Hancock, all that stuff
I
is like
know.
oh seven,
I
oh
mean,
eight.
look, just the music. I mean, that Life Jennings album, that
Life.
Get Lifted, that Get
Yeah,
Lifted album. I mean, those two albums right there, man. I mean, it got me through a lot. Got me through a
right,
lot. Those two albums right there. That
right.
was around the same time. So yeah, the 2000s, man, they go neck and neck. But I gotta give it to the 90s if I had to choose. And the reason why I say that is because, like you just said, it's just too many great things. It was in the 90s. I mean, one of my greatest shows is the Cosby Show. I have 4 children, and he Cliff Huxtable had 4. So I idolized that show, and I looked up to him. You know what I'm saying? So that was in the 90s. So I got in a different world. Another one. Uh, 92 was probably the best season.
And
And
one of your favorite sitcoms, Friends, was one of my favorite when we speak outside the culture. But what was the TV show that you talked about more than anybody in the 90s that was outside of our culture? Seinfeld, the 90s. I think
right,
it aired from like 89 to 98, 97 or something. So
right.
Seinfeld,
And he
Mama's
wrote it.
Mad About You, um, yeah, all those stuff. Saved by the Bell. We talked about all of that. And the movies, like J Lo came out. This is when we first started to see J Lo from that dancing on a lemon color, all the way up. Hell, in Living Color. How could I miss that? Jim Carrey, all of Jim Carrey's movies. I could drop the mic with Jim Carrey. The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, Beavis and Butthead. Um, yeah, man, ain't nothing fucking with the 90s, bro. I've been saying that shit for a while, and you used to always try to make a debate on why they might be, but then again, they might not be.
Yeah, it's close, but overall, if you look at it overall, yeah, man, the 90s, man, I mean, they had all the flavor. Now the 2000, we took it and we spiced it up some more, but they had it all the way around.
Yeah, yeah. The 90s, man.
Yeah,
The
it
90s.
count.
The 90s is the shit.
I
Julia
mean, you know,
Roberts had a lot of good
2013,
movies.
yeah, it count.
It should count.
Pretty Woman,
More rappers
Julia
came
Roberts.
in.
You're a huge Julia Roberts fan. Pretty Woman came out in the 90s. Yeah, man. Ain't nothing messing with the 90s. I'm sorry. That's it. Ain't nothing else to talk about, really. So I'm going with the 90s at number one, just because overall they had more things that I felt was popping. I said Married with Children an hour ago. Yeah, I did, Donnie. But I appreciate it. Hell yeah, Married with Children.
Even the
Uh,
talk shows, the
even
Jerry
even
Springer,
even talk shows.
the Ricky
Jerry,
Lake Show,
Jerry, Ricky
uh,
Lake.
Phil Donahue. Like, we had some great talk shows, man, back then.
Yeah, man.
Oh, damn, Oprah Winfrey. How did I put
Dating
the?
shows. Oprah
I mean,
started in the 80s, but
number
she
one.
ran through the 90s. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No doubt. Man, look, I hate to say it. I know I'm gonna get some flack for this. Soap operas was the shit in the 90s. I don't know how many
Man,
people
it
still
was
watch
the
it
game
today.
shows. Even
I
though
said
game
the
shows
game
been
show.
existing, but they were really great in the 90s. Wheel of Fortune, we watched it. We remember Vanna White. You know, I used to do that.
Dating shows and all of that too, man. Yeah, all of that stuff was the shit in the 90s, man. Yeah, man. Arnold Schwarzenegger, whatever he did in the 90s, Sylvester Stallone, whatever he did in the 90s. Well, I could put Stallone in the 80s. That's something we could have gave the 80s some credit for the Rockies. We left the Rocky movies out. I forgot about this shit. I forgot.
But I kept saying franchises. I just didn't name them all. But I
No,
said the
you
80s
didn't.
is when the franchises started. So, like I
Yeah.
said, you gotta give them you gotta give them their credit due on that, man, because they started this franchise shit.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, but the
And they
90s,
they made fortunes. So
90s just took it to another level. Yeah.
yeah.
That's it. That's it. Well, bro, I think that's it, man. This was good. Hour and 15 minutes. I don't think that's bad considering everything that we broke down from music to to movies and sitcoms and economy, everything. Like this was good. I think this was pretty good, and we didn't really leave too much out. When we think of something later on and be like, I forgot that. Either way, at the end of the day, I don't think that we're gonna change our minds because of something that we thought of from another decade. I just think the '90s had it going on everything. Quentin Tarantino had a lot of good movies too. I ain't even thinking about Long Kiss Goodnight and all that stuff, man. Samuel L. Jackson breaking the scene in the movies, in the movie industry. Halle Berry breaking out in the '90s. Ain't nothing. I ain't even talk about um damn, what was it, bro? Boomerang. I ain't even bring up Boomerang and the '90s is the shit. And that's just it. That's all there's to it. You can't fuck Baby Kids,
Harlem
1990,
Nights.
91,
No, Harlem Nights was in the 80s.
89, almost 89. But Baby Kids was like 1990, I believe. Or if so, you just can't. That might have been 89, but still, the '90s, man, it's the shit. It's the shit. And maybe next time I'll come back and I'll do like the best year. What was the best year on all of this stuff? And I think 2001 is gonna be in that category. 1997 or 98 was a very good for me. In everything, the Batman movies and stuff in the '90s was the shit. Um, I didn't even talk about The Preacher's Wife and Waiting to Exhale and Whitney, all the stuff that Whitney did, The Bodyguard. Those are three bop movies right there, and all of that is the '90s. That's why I didn't let you get away with talking about Whitney in the '80s, because she did so much more in the '90s too. The '80s is just music. She went to TV and everything in the '90s. Man, let
Yes.
go.
She did Preacher
Let go.
Wife. That was 96.
All of it was in '90s. Yeah, Preacher Wife '96, Waiting to
Waiting to
Exhale
Exhale.
'95, and Bodyguard was like '93.
Anyway, Whitney was on the road one.
Man, what?
Hey
Long
man.
live. Long live to go. All right, that's all I got, man. And Al Bundy was the king of everything. Al Bundy, Steve Urkel. Man, hey, like I said, man, TV in the '90s, man. Damn. They're good. It was good, good, good. Okay, we ain't gonna hold y'all anymore. I think everybody had to dip out. We ain't really got anybody else here. So we're gonna close this out. But good show, bro. I thank you for coming in here and helping me debate this and get down to the bottom of it. I think this was gonna be my final answer either way, but I'm glad that you were in here to enlighten us on some of these movies, man. Bill Murray had some good stuff in the '90s too, with Groundhog Day, and he was in Space Jam. Johnny Depp had the Scissorhands movies. Johnny Depp, the '90s is shit, and that's it. It ain't really nothing else to talk about. And again, it was a decade where I could listen to country music, rock music, and a little bit of pop also. Now I'm gonna give 2000s the best for pop, but it still was good in the '90s. Anything that Denzel was in the '90s, that was what everybody was saying. Denzel is the GOAT. The '90s, 90s. Who Got Game? Philadelphia. Him and Tom Hanks. Training Day was '01. I'm gonna come back and talk about the best year because 2001 was a hell of a year.
Yeah,
We're gonna do that.
01 was great. Yeah.
'01 is stamped,
I
man.
would like to see between 01 05. We can see what was going on. That was one of my greatest years, 05, 04, 05.
Okay. Okay. It better come with it. You better bring it for '01. And I would say '97.
Sierra
Another
came
good
out in
year.
05, though, I know.
What did?
Sierra. CC.
It was actually like '04. The goodies, when the goodies came out, yeah, it was like '04.
Okay.
But okay, close enough. Jurassic Park and Independence Day also came out in '96 and '97, and Mike Tyson was running shit, even though he did some time in boxing, and he still was running shit in the '90s. Him and Holyfield,
Oh,
Riddick
yeah.
Bowe,
Tupac, Death Row.
Tupac, Death Row, Biggie, Bad
Bad Boy.
Boy. It's the 90s. We didn't even bring that up. We just
Didn't even
talked
bring it
about
up.
it. We didn't even bring it up. It's the 90s. Hands down. Hands down.
MTV, even though MTV was in the 80s, started in the 80s, but MTV Yo Raps, that was in the 90s.
MTV Yo Raps, Bill Bellamy, MTV Jams.
What your boy did from Queens, Ed Lover,
Yep. Yep.
90s.
Yep. I forgot to mention Ace Ventura, Pet Detective too. Jim Carrey. The 90s is the GOAT, y'all. And so we did it. We pretty much did it. Do you all agree with us or disagree? Let me know. Let us know in the comments. We just broke down the greatest decades of all time, depending on a little bit of everything from music, the movie franchises, the movie genres and music genres, TV sitcoms, and music. And man, yeah, that was a lot. And there's a lot of ways to look at it. But in the end, I think the 90s still saved the day. Wrestling, boxing, football, sports, basketball, everything was the shit in the 90s. So that's it. We're going to wrap it up. We're going to get out of here. It's been a good one. I thank everybody for joining me. And hope you come back again. I will be debating a lot more other things outside of just sports. I told you this is a podcast on sports and entertainment. So I hope everybody enjoyed. We're done. Until we eat again, y'all be safe out there and have a great Thursday. Peace.